Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, it's 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Great pre-owned inventory. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com, and great deals to be had as well. Time now for our play-by-play call today, and a joyless season for the Pirates. A fun moment.
And the pitch, and a swing and a deep fly ball out to left, toward the wall, and this one is gone right down the line. Jacob Stallings with a walk-off homer. And the Pirates sink the Cubs 3-2.
Jacob Stallings, former State College Spike. It was a lot of fun when Jacob was here. Working behind the plate, his dad, Kevin Stallings, who for years was the head basketball coach at Vanderbilt and then was the basketball coach at Pitt. He was up here a lot, and we spent some time in the broadcast booth together. And Jacob has turned out to be a really nice Major League catcher and has become a very good hitter. I'm happy for him, happy for the Stallings family, the nice people. All right. Baseball now. Besides, we're not going to talk about the Pirates. We will get into the Phillies here in a moment. But I want to bring in Bob Nightengale, USA Today, who also had a very thoughtful tweet about Gale Sayers. Bob, welcome. Great to have you with us.
No, thanks. Yeah, what an icon. Yeah, I think he's the most exciting player I've ever seen on football field. Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, and I'm like you. I remember watching him play. I was younger at the time, way younger. We all were. But I looked at him like, man, this guy is something else. I never saw anybody run like that. Before we get to the Major League Baseball part of it, you also put out something about the Atlantic League. And the Atlantic League is, when this is all said and done, I know they actually have talked to State College here at one point. Doesn't mean they're going to go there. But they've always been the experimental league. It sounds like they've become a partner league now, according to what you're saying with Major League Baseball. Yeah,
it's almost like they're, MLB's guinea pig, to try different things and see what happens. Try the different rules and things like that. So, yeah, another partner, and so it's almost like if baseball says, hey, let's try, we say try with the electric strike zone, the runner on second base, let's try it through them. So, I'm sure I think they'll get the other, some other independent league, too, involved, probably the one in Texas.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so they're, it's good news for independent league teams because now they've become kind of incorporated. Sugarland's the one I was thinking about, and also the one in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah. It looks like they may end up being affiliated teams when it's done. Do you know anything? The negotiations restarted August 27th. Pat O'Connor's now retired since. Is there still no real news about minor league and Major League Baseball?
No, it sounds like everybody's counting on cutting out two minor league teams from their affiliations, and but that's all. Still talking about 42 teams gone, but certainly nothing's official.
All right. So let's get to this particular season. The Dodgers clinched again. They're obviously going to be the favorite going into this. When you look at the Dodgers, Bob, what do you see that gives them the ability to put this thing over the top finally?
Well, they're certainly deep. Always had the talent, but very deep. And I think, too, with the way the playoffs are set up, with no off days in the division series or the NLCS, it really helps them because now you can show off your depth without the off days. So I think it's going to hurt some teams. I think it's going to benefit the Dodgers.
The bubble for NLCS, ALCS World Series. Have you seen the ballpark in Texas?
I have not. Just opened up this year. I have not. Retractable roof, and I've seen the outside of it, but I have not been inside.
Yeah, I have. They weren't quite finished with it when I did the Cotton Bowl, but I saw it. No offense, but the old ballpark looked much nicer from the outside. Just a personal opinion. What did you think? What did you think? Of the bubble idea, and have they said to you what protocols you need to have to cover it?
Yeah, well, no protocols for the writers or the TV folks. I don't know. I mean, broadcasters be let in, but no protocols for us because we're not seeing the players anyway. We're not going to the clubhouse or seeing them on the field. For the players, really, I think beginning today or yesterday, they all have to go into hotels. So even if you're home, your home city, you got to be in a hotel, and so that way you're protected for 7 days. And then once these teams go to start playing these games in the bubbles, same rules. You're not allowed to leave the complex. Family members have to be quarantined for 7 days before they join you. Not allowed outside the property unless you want to go for a walk or something like that. No stopping at the hotel, restaurant, or bar. So very, very strict. But hey, it's been working for baseball.
It has been working for baseball. They're going to make it to the playoffs when this is all said and done. It's a different year, obviously. What do you think of the expanded playoff? Was it the right thing to do in terms of the number of teams they put in?
It was the right call for this year. The only reason I say it because it's so skewed. I mean, who knows how strong each division is, but it wasn't going to be fair for just two wild card teams that don't even play the same schedule to stop it there. This way, hey, there's going to be some teams that don't belong that are in. But I don't think there's a team that should be in that's left out. Everybody had a great chance, and if you don't make, easiest year in the world to make the playoffs in baseball history. So I think it makes sense. The only thing that's going to hurt with the playoff format is you don't have, very little advantage to win the division. I mean, you have home field, but with no fans, and then it's all out the window. So I'm sure people go crazy if the Dodgers or the Yankees get knocked off the first round.
Because everything is so compressed with this, there will be a lot of pressure on bullpens. In your opinion, who has a quality bullpen in this particular year?
Well, certainly the teams like the Cincinnati Reds. When they get picked up, Archie Bradley to go with Mary Garrett is they got a nice bullpen. Williams and Hader, of course, are lights out for the Milwaukee Brewers. The Dodgers have some depth, but they're a little shaky at that back end. And, of course, the Yankees, always have a great bullpen, and their bullpen's probably as good as anybody. And, Tampa Bay, you don't know. They just mix and match. I think they'd use about 9 or 10 different guys to get saves this year.
Yeah. That's because they have a 40-man pitching staff.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, back a year ago, a.k.a. the old days, they had that Durham-Tampa Bay, that Durham-St. Petersburg shuttle was on all the time. It's like every 5 days they change somebody up. The Philadelphia Phillies, we know the bullpen's been lousy for them. Anything else that's derailed them from being better than maybe some fans in Philadelphia think they should be?
Nothing jumps out, but it just doesn't seem like they click. I mean, kind of the same thing last year. It seemed like they're, getting some nice individual performances. Obviously, Harper's hit a nosedive here the last month.
Right.
Got a feeling he's hurt a lot more than people think for him to be playing this or hitting this poorly, even having trouble getting balls in the outfield. But, yeah, it's weird. Just something's missing in that clubhouse. I think some leadership, something. But, yeah, they shouldn't, particularly that division. I mean, where, except for the Braves aren't a powerful team by any means. There's really not a quality team in there. There's a very good chance that the Marlins make the playoffs with a losing record. I mean, they're trying to give it to Philadelphia, and they won't take it.
Yeah, in fact, you retweeted the Jason Stark tweet. Just this month, the hashtag Marlins have lost games by 20 runs, 15 runs, 11 runs, and 10 runs. And they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. And Mattingly's going to win Manager of the Year in the National League.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So the Cleveland Indians, when you look at the American League, a lot of people talked about Tampa Bay, a little bit about Oakland, a lot about the Yankees, obviously. How dangerous is Cleveland?
Very dangerous. I mean, nobody wants to play them first round. It's like, some of these cases, it's like you really want to win the division and have to face face them. I mean, if I'm the Minnesota Twins or Chicago White Sox, that's the last team I want to face. I'd rather face anybody else than the Cleveland Indians. Just when you're talking about throwing a Bieber at you in game one, and you got Carrasco and those guys, it's tough. I think they're very dangerous. Now they can't hit, but they can sure pitch, and in a short series, they're capable of doing a lot of damage there.
I think for me, two fun stories this year, and it may not be in your category, but two fun stories to me this year have been the White Sox, who have been able to make some savvy trades and rebuild themselves, and the San Diego Padres. What do you think of those two teams, Bob?
Yeah, they're almost mirror images of each other. Both have a lot of fun. You're absolutely right. It'd be fun if they met in the World Series. But yeah, both teams kind of a year ahead of schedule, particularly the White Sox. I thought the White Sox would be a real force a year from now, but not this year. I didn't think they had a chance for division series or division title, particularly with that pitching. And they've really come through. To me, Abreu's MVP. I mean, he just kept that team together. Besides putting up monster numbers, Tim Anderson. I didn't think he'd have this kind of year. I wasn't sure last year was a fluke or not. In the Padres, here's why they gave Manny Machado $300 million. Tatis, and he's hit the wall lately. But just a solid. Both teams have a lot of fun playing the game and a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, there's no question. I think they're fun teams to watch. What about the Oakland A's? They ended up clinching the American League West. They continue to be a great story year in and year out. What is it about how he put? We know about the Moneyball thing and the whole deal, but what are the key elements for him that have allowed them to put pieces together that make them competitive?
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of quality depth. It's not like a team full of superstars. They do have star players. With Marcus Semien at short, and Chapman, who's out for the year, unfortunately, at that third base, and Matt Olson at first. But yeah, and then just they got strikeout pitchers. They have good defense, and they got the most underrated manager in the game. And Bob Melvin is unbelievable. I think he's a Hall of Fame manager. But just he really gets his guys to play year in and year out. Does a fabulous job. Yeah, they were my pick to be in the World Series. I mean, my original pick back in February was Dodgers over Oakland. Rematch of '88, and same result. But I think Oakland can still get there. But I think on paper right now, in the American League, Tampa's probably the team to beat on paper in the American League.
Which then brings me to Kevin Cash. What do you think of the job he has done down there?
Yeah, very good job. I mean, a lot of front office interference. I mean, they do a lot of things there, help out with the lineup and stuff like that. But yeah, he does a tremendous job. Very, very well liked by the players. Has been a perfect fit with a young team like that. So yeah, outstanding job. And then hey, who knows if they had kept they had not made that trade and still had Pham there in the center fielder. Yeah, there might be a better team. Yeah.
Right, no, agreed. What about the San Francisco Giants? Allegedly rebuilding, as you pointed out earlier today, yet they're right in the thick of this thing. Why?
The veterans, I think they have so much pride. And those guys, Longoria, people thought, okay, he's washed up. He's played very well. Brandon Crawford has played well. Belt has bounced back. And this is without Posey, and, of course, Sandoval's gone now, and Hunter Pence is gone. And a lot of those young guys, kind of stepped up and had enthusiasm. Guys like Mike Yastrzemski, Alex Dickerson has played well for him. Mm-hmm. So, just a fun team. I mean, they're as big a surprise as anybody. Probably, we think the biggest surprise is probably, the Marlins and the Giants. Yeah,
and by the way, for fans around here, Alex Dickerson began his pro career here in State College when he was drafted by the Cardinals. They want to open the door for fans, limited, to be at the NLCS, the World Series in Texas. How intrigued are you by that possibility?
Yeah, very intrigued. I mean, I think it's happening. The Texas governor wants it to happen. I think that, all they have to do is put the tickets on sale. I think fun to see fans back in. I mean, we see it in small doses in football. Just to see fans have fun again. Hey, the players miss it. It's been very strange without that. You have the fake crowd noise and everything else, which doesn't sound bad when you're in a stadium or certainly not watching TV. But it's not the same. We're not watching people's faces and stuff like that. I'm not sure how it would be because it's a neutral site. The only play, if the Astros made the World Series, they'd be closest to a home field. But still, Houston is not Arlington. I mean, it's Arlington, not Houston. So, that'd be interesting to see if fans, say if the Dodgers and A's, if they actually have fans fly in for it.
It is one final question, Bob, and that deals with, obviously, the roller coaster to get here. They had to shut it down like everybody in March. Then there was the contentious negotiations. Then they started playing, and then there was the Marlins deal, the Cardinals deal. How much credit does Major League Baseball, its players, and everybody associated with, how much credit should they get for getting it to this point?
I think tremendous credit. I mean, I heard people in spring training, the 2.0, saying, hey, a 20% chance of getting through spring training, 0% chance of getting it done. But they stuck to their gun and said, let's give this thing a try. And to the hey, to the players' credit, they follow protocols. I think in both instances it was kind of a fluke thing. It showed how fast the virus can travel and showed you how scary it can be. But to only have, I think, one positive test now in the last 35 days, nothing in the last 3 weeks, huge credit. And I do believe because of the roller coaster, as you mentioned, when you win the World Series, I think you'll be remembered as fondly as any other season, if not even more so, because you had to be so mentally tough and emotionally tough to survive this.
And I think what they did was, I think they set the tone for a lot of other leagues trying to play outdoors. I mean, I give them a lot of credit because I think in the end, I think they set a tone. So,
I think so too. I mean, look at the NFL, and I don't think they've had a positive test, right? Or at least, which is stunning. So maybe the NFL guys watch baseball and say, hey, if they can do it, we can do it.
Exactly. Hey, Bob, it's always a pleasure. It's always a lot of fun talking baseball with somebody who knows it like you do. Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure. Take care of yourself.
All right, final half hour, we're going to depress the audience, going from the positivity of a conversation with Bob Nightengale of USA Today to Daniel Gallen discussing the Eagles.
And now no Jalen Reagor for 5 weeks, at least.
Hey, you drafted him.
Hey, I wasn't for the draft pick.
Man,
I played this one on Howie.
Hey, look, I've been impressed with Jalen Hurts. All right, we'll come back.
A whole 3 plays as the decoy.
With more in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Great to have you with us. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. The Nuggets beat the Lakers last night. It's now 2-1, and the Nuggets are probably feeling like they should be up 2-1, but a great shot by Anthony Davis in Game 2 is the difference right now. It's made it, again, 2-1 in favor of the Nuggets. Believe it or not, for the first time, there's actually concern about LeBron James. He's 35 years old. And something that's been incredible about LeBron James is that it just seems he's never fatigued. But at 35, he needs more breaks than ever. And here's what's really concerning for the Lakers. In the playoffs, in the first quarter of games, he is shooting 64%. In the second quarter of games, he is shooting about 67%. Here's the problem. When he gets to the third quarter, he's shooting 44%. And when he gets to the fourth quarter, he's shooting 40%. That is a problem. Because the Lakers, when LeBron was on the floor and he played 37 minutes last night, were +2. They were -11 when he was off the floor. And that's been typical. When he's been off the floor, the Lakers have not been able, they don't close gaps. It's just a question of holding teams off so that he gets back in the game. That is an issue for them right now. Believe it or not. Don't usually talk about the NBA, but we are seeing the incredible run of LeBron James for the first time ever, where you look at it and go, has Father Time caught up with him? In a small way, not a major way, but a small way. He's playing older.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Great new product lines. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Well, pre-owned inventory may be what you prefer or maybe what your budget prefers. Well, they've got a great selection of pre-owned inventory. Great deals to be had as well. Fabulous service department, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. All right, now we're going to... Matt tells everybody he's allegedly turning the corner on this 0-2 Titanic.
I am.
Well, now we'll take you down memory lane. We'll bring in Daniel Gallen from NBC Philadelphia. Daniel, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me this afternoon.
So let's start with Carson Wentz. Whenever you're going to start with a team that is not exactly going great guns at the moment, you start with the quarterback. So what are you seeing with him, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $128 million question with your quarterback when he's not playing well.
Ooh, that was bitter. Oh.
They paid him a lot of money to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
Sure.
And he's not playing like that right now. And it's been different things both weeks. I mean, last week against Washington in week 1, he gets sacked 8 times. I think he got hit 14 times.
Right.
He's constantly on the run. And you can't, really do much when you're in those circumstances.
Right.
Then you turn around to this week. I think no sacks. I think 3 quarterback hits. And still, making a couple of mistakes, not hitting guys that are open. It's just it's been kind of baffling, honestly. We saw Wentz down the stretch last year. He really picked up the team in December to carry them to that division title. And you thought that he'd carry that over into this year. And he did it for, I think, 28 minutes last week before he threw the interception late to set up Washington's first score.
Right.
And he just hasn't really gotten back on track.
All right. Normally, obviously, quarterbacks won't be perfect as they play, but they can get a lot of help from wide receivers. who can make a couple of tough catches for them. How far behind is Philadelphia in the wide receiver game compared to some other teams in this league?
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting storyline this offseason. You saw a bunch of teams that have good young quarterbacks go out and get guys help. The Bills brought in Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
The Cardinals bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And the Eagles elected to, you bring back Deshaun Jackson, who's healthy and, looks good. He looks like himself.
Mm-hmm.
And they elected to go in the draft. And Jalen Reagor, the first-round pick, he looks as advertised. He had the 55-yard catch last week, but he's explosive. You can see his athleticism, and he looks the part of the first-round pick. And then the two day 3 guys, John Hightower and Quez Watkins. Watkins is on IR, and then Hightower barely played barely played this week after a pretty rough debut last week. And those are seed guys. And with day 3 picks, that's kind of, he's a lottery ticket. If one of those guys, pans out and is an above-average contributor, I mean, you basically won. So the Eagles elected to go through the draft and, bring back some of the same guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, like Greg Ward, like Deshaun. Alshon Jeffrey should be back within the next 3 weeks, based on the roster decision they made with him. But yeah, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't call it the worst wide receiver core in the NFL, but you don't feel like there's the one guy you can go to when you need to make a play right now.
Well, not exactly inspiring. How about that? Let's see. So now let's get to the defense. Very little talk when you get to talk shows and analysis talks about playing your defense to your offense and your offense to the defense. So let's get to that for a second. Is the Eagles' defense just not playing well because they're not playing well, or is there so much pressure on them because the offense isn't playing well?
I think it has to do a little more with, they're not necessarily playing well. Jim Swartz said yesterday that he had the wrong game plan for the Rams on Sunday, which, is kind of an alarming thing to hear from a defensive coordinator with his reputation.
But Dan, let me give him credit where credit's due. At least he was direct and honest about it. I mean, a lot of people just would have covered it up, saying, "Oh, yeah, this." He didn't make any excuses. I at least give him credit. I don't give him credit for the game plan, but I give him credit for admitting it. How about that?
Yeah, that was going to be the second part of my point, is that, it's very refreshing to hear that, and I think it kind of, it illuminated things a little bit more on what went wrong. But I think that the number one place you look is that defensive line. Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, and Javon Hargrave are all making a lot of money.
Yes,
Jackson looked really good in week 1. Cox hasn't really flashed. On the edge, Derek Barnett came back after missing week 1. He's a former first-round pick. Brandon Graham is consistent. I think that he's the one guy where you kind of know week in and week out what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
And that's, above average play, maybe a couple sacks, but at least solid play against the run. But I think with the defense, I think a lot of people will look at some of the mistakes that the linebackers made and some of the defensive backs getting beat against the Rams. But it just really starts up front, especially with a quarterback like Goff, who, if you can pressure him, he'll make mistakes. And the defensive line wasn't getting that done on Sunday.
Would the Eagles be a team that misses its crowd?
Yeah, I go back and forth on that type of thing. Lane Johnson said yesterday that it was weird being out there without the crowd. I think Doug Peterson told NBC that, he missed the crowd and he thought it was pretty different. But one thing that a lot of players have said is that, once the game actually starts and once you're actually playing, you don't really notice it because even when there is a crowd, it's part of the job to tune it out and focus on what is happening. But, yeah, I mean, the Link has a reputation as a really tough place to play. They won 7 of 8 there in 2017 during the Super Bowl run, and they have a really good record under Doug Peterson playing there. But, I mean, over the last 2 seasons, they've had some pretty tough losses at home. So, I think that home field advantage can be a little overrated sometimes. I personally think it has to do more with, the actual traveling and, being in a different environment than necessarily the environment itself.
Right. Okay, so Cincinnati, when the Bengals played the Browns last Thursday night, I came on the show Friday and said, in watching that game, we know the Bengals have been down and out for a while. We know the Browns have been down and out, except for 1 year, ever since they returned in '99. But I felt like Baker Mayfield, for all the criticism, gives the Browns a fighting chance. And Joe Burrow now gives, in watching him, it looks like he's the kind of guy that gives the Bengals a fighting chance. How do you view this game?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be close. I think that when you look at the schedule and you see that they're going to get the Bengals, a team that was really bad last year, and you see that it's early in the season, that's a good thing, because maybe, if they were playing week 12, week 13, Joe Burrow might have more figured out. The Bengals might have more figured out.
Right.
But watching them Thursday night, they seemed a little bit further along than I thought they might be. There's still some areas on that team that are not good.
Right, exactly. That's why they won 1 game last year.
Yeah, but having Burrow back there, it's that whole thing where as soon as you find the quarterback, it can really change things, for your whole team. And I think that Burrow kind of does that. I don't really know if having him throw the ball 61 times per game is the right way to win. But I think the last time I checked, the Eagles were favored by about a touchdown. And, I think it's going to be a touchdown game or less, if the Eagles win.
Daniel, absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate the candid analysis.
Thanks for having me.
Was it as candid as your analysis?
Yeah, I basically agree with everything, but I'll go further to say that, I think they do miss the crowd at the Link. I mean, Doug Peterson flat out said to NBC 10, which Daniel alluded to, that I hate it without having the fans there. The Eagles have been really, really solid at home under Doug Peterson. So I think that really is a big factor, not having the crowd there, and it's something that they have to adjust to.
I think it's something they're all going to have to adjust to.
And actually, really, when you think about this, Steve, because Doug Peterson in his Monday presser used a lot of the excuses of how unusual this offseason's been. So it seemed like the Eagles were doing all right, but really, they didn't do okay with this unusual offseason and all the unusual circumstances. They're not handling it that well, and it's showing their play.
Yeah. It also has led to a fair amount of bitterness. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK. All right, great to have you with us. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Our high school football roundtable tomorrow. Sans the award-winning suit, who's just, it's kind of snobbish, don't you think?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, we'll have the Chief on. Chief's terrific. And Greg Wetzel will be on. And yeah, well,
we got Zach, too, for Sealands Grove.
Zach Showers on Sealands Grove. But no suit.
Nope. We'll have to see next week, maybe.
Let me guess. The next touchdown that they score, he's in.
Nothing would surprise me at this point.
Oh, man. So, all right. We mentioned the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Looks like it will happen. It'll be December 8-9 in all likelihood. The Mid-American Conference votes on playing football on Friday. Looks like an 8-game season is what they're aiming at. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West evidently are going to vote on Thursday about their seasons. Mountain West would like to start on the weekend of October 24th, like the Big Ten. But we don't know when the Pac-12 wants to start if they were to vote yes. I don't know. It's interesting. It's amazing the passion for college football in the SEC and the Big Ten is different countries, parts of the country have different passions. Out west, it's not as if the people running Pac-12 programs are passionate. They are, but how passionate are the fans? Remember that story I did a few years ago about student no-shows? How even Georgia, for example, was like 27% student no-shows. They get the tickets but don't go. Well, the two worst were Arizona and Arizona State. They were up between 45 and 50% of student no-shows a few years ago. And that's amazing. And that's why when you hear about, well, they might do it, they might not. Part of the ability to do this, you have to have passion to do it. I'm not so sure they do. Now, also the circumstances out there are a bit different. California certainly struggled with COVID. There's no getting around it. I mean, it's a huge population. But it's not all of California. Remember when we had on the show, we had Dieter Kurtenbach on, who works in Northern California, and we've had and he was talking about, I know with Dieter, he's talking about, he says, well, up here it hasn't been that bad. It's all down in Los Angeles County. And that's a huge population center, L.A. County. Gigantic population center. But that's where most of their problems have come from. The rest of the state has, they'll tell you the rest of the state, they're pretty comfortable. Not, you're cautious, but feel okay about what's going on. And, Tony Knob has been, somebody else will say, hey, look, L.A. area, it's like not great. He said, rest of the state, not bad. Okay. But you have 4 Pac-12 programs in California. 2 in Arizona, 2 in Oregon, 2 in Washington, then there's Colorado, Utah. But the passion is different there for it. And as I pointed out before, people say, well, it's not quite the same caliber. I enjoy watching Pac-12 football, and I enjoy watching Mountain West football because of the nature of what I do. I either have a game on the road, and depends on what time, and then you get back, or even at home, especially if it's like a 3:30 game or whatever. Usually that late game is usually the game I get to see. So I've liked watching late-night Pac-12 football. I like watching late-night Mountain West football because that's when I can get a beverage, sit down, and watch it because that's the game I get to see. But the passion for it out there is a little bit different than it is in the Big Ten and especially in the SEC. All right, the Phillies have to somehow fight their way back into this thing. Wow. They are really slumping. Really slumping. And the Eagle, we're going to... are there any positive writers that we're going to have about the Eagles this week? Like somebody to get you kind of out of your doldrums here?
Well, I mentioned earlier with Ruben Frank that PC had on Donovan McNabb and comparing Wentz and how they had similar bad starts after their first two games. McNabb in 2003. Eagles ended up going to the NFC Championship game that year. Both were in their fifth year. That's pretty much the only thing that's helped me with this. And I agree with Daniel in the fact that I think it's still going to be a close game if the Eagles were to win this.
You're playing Cincinnati. You do know that, right?
I get it. I think you will see the Eagles' offense start to look maybe a little bit better, basically by going through the run game. I think they're going to stick with that and to open everything else up to get Wentz more comfortable. Miles Sanders looked pretty good other than the fumble he had last week. Almost had 100 yards rushing. So I think you're going to see them do that. But the defense, I don't know what you're going to get. Because, yeah, Joe Burrow is off to a good start, but he's still a rookie quarterback. But at the same time, Joe Mixon's off to a good start. He still has A.J. Green. Tyler Boyd's off to a good start. I can see those three players being a problem for the Eagles. This game is not a gimme.
That really is a sad commentary. You're playing the Bengals. All right.
And the Eagles are 0-2. Both teams are 0-2. There you go.
Phillies and Nationals, 6:05 this evening. Airtime 5:30 on Eagle 107. Again, as I pointed out before, the Bengals are the first team I've ever seen that when the opposing team is kneeling down to end the game, they actually gain yardage. It's kind of remarkable, actually.